My name is Nia Imani, and I'm so excited to finally be hosting this podcast called This Is Where I've Been. This Is Where I've Been has been in the works for a long time, and I'm excited to finally be stewarding something that the Lord has given me. Listen, I'm excited to talk about all the things, where I've been, what I've been learning, who I've been with, and what my life has looked like. These episodes will look like conversations with friends, inviting you all into my home and getting to know really just how good God has been through the stories of other people and in the seasons that they haven't been able to put language to what's been going on in their world. But this episode is strictly between me and you. This episode, I'll be talking about me. And I had a few friends send in some questions, and we're just going to dive right into them. Who are you really? Not the titles. Who are you when nobody's watching? I'm extremely awkward. If you know me, you know. I am very quiet and also very loud. I feel like I am just like a melting pot of so many things. I love fashion. I love to put on heels, but I absolutely love to wear some J's any day of the week. As much as I'm into makeup and all the things, I feel like I'm a mood dresser, so you can also very much see me in jogging pants chilling. I feel like I'm a lot of things. I'm a friend. I'm a sister. I'm a Nini. I am very, very active in my godchildren's lives on a day-to-day basis. I don't know. That's just who I am. Outside of a writer, outside of a conference host, outside of a poet, I think that I've just been very excited in this season about being a woman and learning who I am, what that looks like, and the different layers of what that is. Why this is where I've been. What made you finally speak instead of saying private? I had a simple answer for this one, which is obedience. I had no desire to do a podcast. Actually, This Is Where I've Been came from a book I wrote a few years ago while going through chemo. I was diagnosed with cancer in 2020, and everybody was just kind of like pushing, like, what are you going to do next? When are you going to write another book? Really just belonging to that season that it looked like so many things before then. Before cancer, it was an abusive relationship, several other things where people were just excited to see me put language to it and hear that story. But I was super uncomfortable in that space. And I had no desire to really share. So This Is Where I've Been came from that space. I feel like I was in a season where people were trying to, and not intentionally, or maliciously, force me into putting language to what the Lord wasn't ready to, for me to broadcast yet. So I allow Him to continue to develop me and to actually have the story to tell outside of feelings and emotions. And now we're here. Another question we had is, what almost made you not start this podcast? Honestly, just the amount of vulnerability required. And like I told y'all, I'm awkward, so I really don't like to feel looked at. I genuinely enjoy being behind the scenes. Where have you actually been mentally, emotionally, spiritually? Honestly, in a lot of different places. I'll say learning. I've been healing, counting the cost, being developed in a secret place with Jesus, and spiraling. I'll say I've been trying again. I've been exploring the different layers of who I am, and I've been really, really I'll say truthfully, I've been finding creative ways to say no when the Lord is asking me to say yes. That is absolutely where I've been. What have you been processing in silence that people would be surprised by? Getting a premeditated answer on this one was a little hard because that's such a private question. But I would say, I don't think people realize just how much I have struggled and do struggle with my mental health. I think that's layered by so many things. A lot of people know my story about trauma, but I've been through several different traumas. And I'm in this season of my life now that I'm older where I have revisited certain traumas unexpectedly. So it's triggered a lot of childhood things. So after doing all this work and all this healing, in the beginning of adulthood and even throughout my childhood, now I found myself face to face with things I never thought I would be face to face with again. So I would say that just what it takes for me to get out of bed some days, and also just what it takes for me to show up healed. I think it's one thing to practice emotional intelligence, but what I'm learning is putting it into practice with relational intelligence takes a different kind of it takes a different kind of stability. And it can be very sobering. It can also be very triggering. So that's what I would say. What did your quiet seasons produce in you? I think my quiet seasons produced, um, I'll say my quiet seasons produced a louder version of me, honestly. A bolder version. My quiet seasons definitely produced ministry, which is something that I have absolutely never had a desire to do. My quiet seasons have also produced a confidence in who the Lord is in those seasons. I've learned Him to be like genuinely a friend, genuinely to be a hiding place, and it's so special. It's so special. What did you lose in the process of becoming who you are now? This was one of my favorite questions. This question is extremely loaded for me, but I'll say I lost a lot. Even just looking at the timeline of 2020 to 2026, I've lost a lot. But one thing is I lost this allegiance to myself in order to become who I am now. What I believed, what I lived by, like all of those things didn't line up with who God has called me to be. And the wrestle with that has been very, very difficult. Feeling like I'm being disloyal to myself, or I'm leaving a part of my life behind, or I'm not being understood, or what I'm being asked to do is unfair. And the Lord told me something actually in a situation. It was situational, and I was about to respond to somebody who had said something wrong to me. He said, "You may have a reason, but you don't have a right." And that's what I've learned throughout the allegiance thing. So that's what I've learned through loss in general. That you can have a reason to be upset, you can have a reason to want to hold on, but you don't have a right to. You don't have a right to stay, in a place that is literally fighting against where the Lord is calling you into. I'll also say I lost my brother. Grief is a tricky thing, and the grief that comes with transitioning is a different kind of monster. But dealing with that, and then also dealing with real grief, and not real grief as if that grief isn't real, but grief as far as losing someone who has angered you, who has been your friend, who has been your parent, all the things. That loss really changed a lot for me in the last few years. Why is vulnerability so difficult for you as a writer and as a person? How I grew up, I didn't really grow up in a house where it was like safe to be vulnerable. My dad is a tough guy in that sense when it came to us. Like he didn't really do all that crying. Like it wasn't really a thing. And though I grew up the youngest, I have a little sister now, but I grew up in a house with a bunch of older siblings, and I grew up the youngest. It just wasn't what we, I don't know, it just wasn't what we did. So vulnerability like genuinely makes me very uncomfortable. And I've had to learn to be vulnerable. I've had to learn that that's where real transformation happens. That's where real relationship takes place. Even just like that's where truth comes. Like there is a layer of truth that your life will completely miss if you are not courageous enough to be vulnerable. And when I realized that I wanted to live an honest life, honest to myself and honest to really, to my relationships and a fair chance to my relationships, that's what took me into being vulnerable. And then as far as a writer, why is it difficult for me as a writer? It is actually the only way I'm vulnerable. Writing is what helped me discover vulnerability, and it's what helped me steward it. It's also what gave people a lens into what I've always kept very private. It put language to things that I never even tried to put language to. So I'll say I'm most vulnerable when I'm writing, for sure. What does it cost you to be honest publicly? This one's simple: privacy. For me, privacy feels like safety ultimately. And then I go through tons of anxiety. What do people misunderstand about your silence or your absence? I think in this current season, I'm realizing that I don't have anything to say. Maybe like people misunderstand that me being silent doesn't mean that I don't have anything to say. I'm just learning that the more influence your voice has, the more choosy you should be with what you say and when you say it. And like that sounds like cliche, but no, literally, when you have the more value attached to your voice, you learn to just kind of, you know, be careful with where you spend that currency. If that makes sense. Um, about my absence, one thing about me, I show up. So if I'm not present, I'm struggling in my own life, and even then, it is very hard for me to not show up. It's very rare, not even very hard. It's very rare. I can have a bunch of stuff going on. I'm gonna show up, and I'm gonna show up in fullness. And if I don't show up in fullness, if it's like something's a little off, like the sky is falling. And if I told you what was going on for real, you wouldn't believe me. So I would definitely say that. What are you currently learning about yourself in this season? I'm learning a lot about me, and I'm actually enjoying it. And not always. There's parts about me where I'm learning like, oh, I'm a little uncomfortable with that, but I'm enjoying the process. I can't believe myself in this season. I can't believe I'm this tough, and not in the way that I always learn to be, but I'm learning the true meaning and true benefits of being soft. Kind of what I was saying earlier about leaning into what it means to be a woman, in all the ways that I didn't aspire to be growing up. For me, I've just always been very girl boss, always been very, absolutely a hustler, absolutely like tough, tomboy, all the things. So I'm just learning things about myself. um, they're very different in the power and leaning into that softness where I thought that it was like this weakness. And I'm kind of excited about that. And I also say I'm learning so much about who God says I am. And it's kind of been blowing my mind, especially with knowing like where I come from, literally where I come from, uh, in every way. It's just really, really been blowing my mind to see what the Lord has blessed me with, as far as influence and as far as just prophetically and all the vision and gifts and all the things He's given me. It literally does not make any sense, and it does not line up with anything that I expected. And that's the cool thing about God. What pattern is God trying to break in you right now? Definitely my need for control. That's consistent. I'm learning to trust God in a real way. And trauma deceived me into believing that as long as I'm in control, I don't get hurt. And I believed that narrative for a very long time, even though it's absolutely not true. So right now I'm learning to relinquish control, and literally in every single area of my life, like the Lord is petitioning me to lay down control. And it was overwhelming at first to look around and feel like I don't have my hands tightly, grasped on anything. I don't have a plan. I don't know what's going on. For the first time in my life, I am quite literally allowing the Lord to order my steps. For the first time in my life, what I've been saying is, I'm just as confused as you are, to people in conversation. So that is definitely what life is teaching me right now. How have your relationships changed as you've grown? Uh, Boundaries. I have learned boundaries, and ultimately I've learned readjusting when needed. I think learning boundaries is one thing, but I'll say I've been learning to implement them. I've always really been a boundary girl, but I've never really been good at consistently implementing them. And then readjusting for me is hard. When you have found your way into my world, into my space, into my life, it is very hard for me to readjust, and put you in a different category if need be. But I've been learning that readjusting is necessary, and that ultimately when I don't, there's a cost that I will pay, and I can't afford it. And also I've been learning stewarding myself relationally, so that I can pour into the spaces that I need to. However, one thing that I've learned coupled with that is that even when I readjust, even when I make a boundary, my God given responsibility to that person doesn't get to change. And that takes real maturity to be a good steward over what looks spoiled. So I've learned that my God given responsibility to that person doesn't get to change. Now, I say God given because sometimes as people, we can think that we have a responsibility, right? But what you believe your responsibility is for that person and what the Lord believes your responsibility is for that person, it's two totally different things. And I have been very, very aware of that in this season. What are you hoping people feel when they listen to this podcast? I'm hoping people feel connected. I'm hoping that people feel connected to something bigger than them. And I hope they feel joy and hope. Ultimately, of course, I hope they feel the presence of God. But I'm hoping that this is where I've been inspires people to talk about where they've been, to talk about where they're going. And a lot of times when you've been stuck in a season of where you've been, right? So trauma, maybe relationship failures or all the things, it can be hard to see where you're going. But I'm hoping that when people see this podcast, it sparks something in them that believes that they are going to get to where they're going, or to where the Lord has called them to. So I'm really excited about that. Okay, so those are the questions. But if you have seen this podcast for the first time and maybe you are just unfamiliar with who I am, I wanted to go back and let you know who I am and what that looks like, what my story is. Again, my name is Nia Imani. My name means purpose and faith. I grew up saying that all the time, so sometimes it just literally sticks. People are always like, is Nia Imani your whole name? No, it is my first and my middle name. I just don't use my last name. I grew up, I was born in Texas, Fort Worth, Texas. Please don't doubt it's my Fort Worth. But I was born in Fort Worth, Texas, and I grew up back and forth from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to Texas. I literally traveled back and forth my entire life. I was raised on the north side of Milwaukee, very important detail. And I have so many siblings that every time it's time for me to count, I forget how many of us it is. But I want to say 8. If I'm wrong, somebody's going to correct me. But 9. I think I'm 9. But okay, so only 2 brothers out of that group. The rest of them are all girls. So that is the life I've lived. I think I stated it earlier, but one of my brothers passed away. He was my favorite human on the planet. When you have that many siblings, like everybody has their pair. So yeah, I was gang about him. I'm doing this now because I don't have any more time to waste. I'm doing this now because I believe that I'm finally in a season where I understand the cost of waiting any longer, honestly. And I genuinely believe that there's something on the other side of this obedience. I can literally feel it. So yeah, that's definitely why. Okay, hold on. Okay. I'm sorry.
Coffee or tea?
Ooh, coffee. I can drink coffee all day.
Early mornings or late nights?
Absolutely late nights. It's midnight right now.
Phone calls or voice notes?
Voice notes. Don't call me.
Music in the car or silence?
It depends on the day, and it depends on the situation. I love music, but it depends. I can listen to music literally all day, but also sometimes I need it to just be a little quiet. So it depends.
Logic or feelings?
Logic or feelings? That's a good question. I always say feelings aren't logical. So you get to feel however you feel without logic.
So
but right, because you need both. I feel like this question is gonna come back to like bite me in my butt.
Routine or spontaneity?
Routine. My life revolves around structure.
Control or surrender?
Why would you ask me that?
Let's chat as you go.
I feel like I would prefer control, but the Christian answer is surrender.
Forgive quickly or take your time?
These questions are eating me up. What'd you say?
Forgive quickly or take your time? All right, moving on. Write it out or say it out loud?
Write it out for sure.
Share in real time or after you've processed?
How long it take you to process this question? Share in real time or after you process? I need a little time to process. Depends on the person. But I'm going to say, yeah, for the most part, I'm going to say I need a little time.
Yeah. Unless it's me.
Yeah, unless it's you.
Yeah. Closure or clarity? Real closure, not your definition of closure.
I don't believe in closure, everyone. Closure is not real. You cannot close a situation. You
Real
just can't do
closure.
that. You felt how you felt. You got to move on with or without the resolve.
Real closure or manipulative closure are not the same things. We can talk about it in my
Closure is not real. Yeah, this isn't her episode. I'm going to say clarity.
Okay.
I prefer to be clear. I don't need closure.
A
I have
soft
Jesus.
life or a disciplined life? Why can't they be the same?
Why can't they be the same? But you know, it really does speak to like who I am, right? Like the split in who I am. Walking into like being soft now.
Yeah.
Coming from I had a very, very disciplined life. I feel like too much discipline, stay with me, too much discipline becomes unhealthy. I've learned it in real time.
I think it's like...
It becomes addicting for me. I'm probably going to say just currently where I am right now, a soft life.
We need to say safe love or stretching love?
Jesus. Yeah.
Okay.
Safe. I prefer to be safe. However, I feel like any love that lasts, you have to be stretched. Yeah. And then safety will come in that. Y'all learned how to be safe together when you're stretched.
Heels or sneakers?
That's not fair to have to choose. A girl can have the best of both worlds. But I wore heels today, so heels.
Plan or go with the flow?
Plan. Plan.
Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram. I've lived so many lives. I've definitely lived so many lives. I've been a substitute teacher, a nanny. I did taxes. I did credit repair. As a teenager, I worked at like Papa Murphy's. I worked at a bank. I was a bank teller. I've lived so many lives. A publisher, a ghostwriter, author, write books. I write songs on the weekends or something like that. In another life, I'm pretty sure I know how to play guitar and piano, but clearly I don't know how to do that. In another life, I'm pretty sure I play like football or something. I feel like I lived a lot of lives. I just got a melting pot of things. So we've reached the end of this episode, and I'm excited. This was good. I was excited to hang out with y'all. I'll be back for episode 2 with my best friend, Reagan Allen, and we'll be talking about the sound we grew into. I'm excited about that episode to talk about friendship and literally the sound we grew into. We'll be talking about writing songs together and all the fun things we do in our world. Y'all keep coming back to check in. Tell us your stories about where you've been and come see our stories about where we've been.